This absolutely is a problem, and as Howard has articulated well, the challenge of trying to meet the demands of the large chains. The other one we got to throw in there, Howard, is Walmart, and actually that's the one that's really driving it in Ontario. While they may not be a big factor here in Atlantic Canada in groceries, they're apparently huge in Ontario, and that is really putting the feet to the fire of the other large chains, and it's making it more difficult for them to support local farmers. This is something we're very aware of in the Valley. We saw the whole Wade's chain, a small local chain, some 15 years ago go to business because of the competition, and guess which stores were supporting the local agricultural community? It was Wade's.
The Green Party Nova Scotia platform has a page and a half on food security. I think it's important that we point out that 90% of the food we consume here in Nova Scotia is from outside the province. So I think one way, we talk about retailers and large grocery stores, I think one way as consumers that we can improve on is to legislate the word local. We've done this in the organic agriculture community now, that if you use the term organically certified, then we all know it's gone through a certification body, and the agriculture practices are through the National Organic Standards. In the same way, we should be forcing Sobeys and Superstore and Save Easy and Walmart to say that if they're going to have local produce, that it has to be produced here in Nova Scotia. Because obviously as consumers, if we're buying 90% food outside of Nova Scotia, we're not consuming our own things. So by taking control of the word local, that means that Sobeys could no longer say that blueberries that were shipped or transported from British Columbia are local blueberries. So I think that's one important thing, is we have to make the link between consumers, and I think that also begins at an educational level. We need to have school farms so that students begin learning the importance of the land and the food that we produce.
Well, certainly. I agree, and a lot of that makes sense, but we shouldn't be misled by that stat that says 90% of the food that we consume here is imported. In fact, we export a lot of food as well. We export, to take your example, blueberries, we export a huge number of blueberries elsewhere. So we're involved in international trade in food, and there are some things that given our climate, we basically just can't grow here. We're going to continue to
what about our beef?
But greenhouses,
85% of our beef.
Greenhouses, I agree on the beef. I agree on the beef, and in fact it'd be nice to have local things. What we have to look at is the possibility of transforming our agricultural sector so that in fact we are in a position where we have to be, which at some point we may well be, to be as self-sufficient as we possibly can. And that means that the agricultural sector certainly has to be protected, and we have to diversify within that, which means things like greenhouses have to be expanded, and we have to help people in that position to make sure that we have as wide a range as possible of foods that we can consume and support ourselves locally. That's what's going to make sense.
The whole concept of Select Nova Scotia, which was warmly embraced by the municipality of the County of Kings, if you look at the Annapolis Valley, it's perhaps the breadbasket of the province. And the whole concept here was to encourage people to not only buy local, but to help identify what local means. The other thing, though, that you have to be aware of, and Howard, I think you were alluding to it there, is that there are inter-jurisdictional trade agreements. And whatever we do, we have to make sure that we also honor those trade agreements. So we're trying to help the local producers, but we're also trying to stay on side within those agreements.
And we could do that by, 85% of the beef, and the beef we're consuming, most of it is not from our own province. So if it said local Nova Scotia beef on it, instead of being manufactured in Quebec and sent down to us, then as consumers we could make that choice. We don't have to allow corporations to send us stuff and consume that. Once we educate the consumers appropriately, then they can flood us with California vegetables, but we'll consume the stuff that comes from our farmers.
Right on.
Yeah, I agree. And the reason this is an energy issue, of course, is that locally produced food, of course, doesn't have to travel as far.
Yeah, the environmental footprint.
Yeah, that's the footprint, exactly.
And what about research and development towards that? I think that's something we really have to pressure the federal government as a provincial government. If you want to find out what blueberries to grow and what synthetic fertilizers and sprays to put on them, there's a wealth of knowledge out there. If you want to go organic, you're usually going to have to find someone that's done it on their own with no government support. So, you know, maybe we could start funding that and pressuring our federal government to better have information for farmers that maybe couldn't make the transition because of their financial situation.
Perfectly good point.
Okay, I have a couple more questions in reserve, but I think I want to open it up to the floor now. You know, so I can throw in extra questions, but if there's anyone that would like to speak, do we have a floor mic? No. No? Okay, I have the floor mic. Okay, all right, I'm going to come around then.
Is this, oh, yeah, sure.
Check, check, check. All right, this is good. So, is there anybody that would like to ask a question? Why don't we form a line here where the floor mic was supposed to be? And, well done. And, yes, if you could introduce yourself to everyone and keep your question in 30 seconds, please.
Hi, my name is Graham Sponigal. You guys mentioned about biofuels, the fact that you're against it, just biomass. Well, there is waste wood, like Howard said, and there's a lot of waste out there. Currently, would you encourage waste to be put into biofuels? Because, for instance, Wilson's, and it does work, they use B30 for their vehicles, B30, and they just shipped 150,000 liters in the last 6 weeks to Germany.
Yeah.
So why can't we do it here? They're shipping it all the way across the ocean.
Could I just say that we're going to do the same format. Sure. We'll start with you. I think it's your turn, Dave. We'll 45 seconds all the way around.
Well, I just want to say that we are not opposed to making use of biomass. You said bio.
No, waste. Just use a waste to make the fuel, right? Like waste vegetable oil, waste salmon oil, waste wood, right? This stuff's going into our landfills when it doesn't need to.
But
It can be used
we're in
as
favor.
energy.
We don't
need
like
to grow
putting
food.
we don't like putting organics in landfills, and we don't like filling up landfills.
Yeah.
And we're actually the best in the country for waste diversion. In fact, I would suggest the best in North America.
We still get a C minus.
So what does that say about the rest of the jurisdictions? Okay, Brendan.
They're talking about us.
Yeah, I think when I spoke about biofuels, you know, I was talking about the genetically modified component and using agriculture land, and I totally disagree with that. We shouldn't be growing products, crops for fuels.
Absolutely.
But certainly the waste, yes, fryer grease, things like that, that makes so much sense. And you know, that's just, to me, the definition of alternative energy. I think that's a tremendous idea. You know, a little ethanol and some fryer grease, ferment that, and bang, all of a sudden we have a fuel. So yes, that makes a lot of sense.
Jane.
Well, you'll certainly find no opposition from a Liberal government on utilizing bio-waste.
Yeah, and I already agreed with you, so if I...
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you to clear up a frustration. Oh, Ron Coleman. A frustration that's been bubbling tonight. I really appreciate the statements. Two frustrations, if you don't mind. One is I appreciate all the statements that climate change is the greatest challenge of the 21st century and so forth, but and I believe that the people in this room are with you in that, but you'd have a hard time believing that reading the election coverage of the last 2 weeks. So I don't know if it's just the Chronicle Herald that's to blame, or if it's